Hello, cyberspace. How are you doing today? My name is Spencer, and this
I'm
is
Mark,
and we are Interest Level. I don't know what's so funny about that, but what's not funny is how great the Black Keys are.
Well, you say great, and I say falling stars, but
Falling stars.
we'll get to that in a little bit, I suppose. What are we going to run over today?
Today we're talking about the Black Keys LPs. We're not talking about any EPs they did, that Truloma, whatever. We're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about just their major releases from 2002, the big come up, all the way to their current highly successful Turn Blue.
Now, see, you and I differ on our feelings about Turn Blue. You think that it's one of their best albums yet, and I think that it's kind of the peak. They've peaked in their career, and they're going down. But that's what we're going to talk about today, and maybe a little bit more. For now, just listen to the nice roundup of this music, and we'll see you in a few seconds. All right, and we're back here at Interest Level. So today we're talking about the Black Keys.
That's right, Mark. And I know you mentioned before you don't like Turn Blue. And the latest release, of course, critically acclaimed, the Black Keys' latest release.
No, I never said I didn't like the album. I just don't like the album under the Black Keys name.
That's right. You made an interesting point about how if Dan Auerbach released this on his own name or under a different band, you actually would really enjoy the album. But the fact that the Black Keys released it as their own, it loses that magic for you.
It certainly does, because if you look back at the older albums of the Black Keys, going back to Magic Potion and the albums before that, they were a blues duo. They were gritty, and they did some very nice songs that really felt raw because they weren't there yet. Now we get songs like Fever, which, being a great song, it is a great tune, but it's not Black Keys. I don't feel that it
doesn't have the grit.
Exactly. And
I can respect that.
It doesn't have the grit. It doesn't feel like a Black Keys song. Too much post-production, not enough Dan Auerbach.
Whereas to me it sounded like in the previous releases, from Magic Potion all the way up back to the original release, the big come up, it almost felt like there was very little effects added to the guitar. It was just raw recording and not too much time spent in the studio editing and mixing the album, whereas now it seems almost overproduced. I
think that the albums suffer greatly from being produced the way they are now. I think the lack of production before, and the Black Keys being an indie band before, independent, I think that really helped them set their image. And now it seems like they're working as hard as they can to destroy the image they already had for themselves by making more pop songs.
Yeah. I think the sound really changed at Attack and Release, in my opinion. And I think after Attack and Release, and then Brothers came, and Brothers, Howlin' For You, and Everlasting Light I want to bring up because it's Dan Auerbach, and he sings completely in falsetto. And I do love Dan Auerbach's falsetto. He's a phenomenal singer. But I had a problem with him singing the whole song. It was like Adam Levine-esque, and I just didn't get it. And
again, it's not very Black Keys.
Exactly. It seems like such a departure from their, gritty, in your face blues. Like I'm struggling. Where even Delta Blues and those guys, they had a real struggle. And the Black Keys were that garage rock revival, having a heavy blues influence, but electrifying it. Having Patrick, his drumming, sometimes not perfect, but it blended well. The two of them, they were brothers separated, which I guess brothers, that's where the name came from, I would imagine. But
well, and you're absolutely right. Attack and Release is really where their sound started to change, because Magic Potion brought them up to more media attention, and it brought focus onto them as a group. It said, hey, these two guys are making really good music. We should get this music out to people. So they said, okay, we're making really great music now, but what if we added more to it? Now, as you say, the progression of a band is great, okay? A band that moves forward is great, but a band that moves totally away from what it is and what it means, I don't feel is very great.
Well, I think we disagree in the fact that the Black Keys have completely moved away from their blues roots. The style Dan plays is still bluesy, yet it's a little bit more powdery, I want to say. It's like blue powder, It's very much light, and it's not anything like their early stuff. Definitely, and you're completely right about that. Where I think our views differ is that if you listen to my favorite track on Turn Blue, Weight of Love, Weight of Love, I'm sorry, just to clarify, it's not so much, the only bluesy part of the song is still Dan's playing.
That's very true.
So he's still keeping his own roots with blues, and he's playing pentatonic, and it's a little bit imperfect of a solo, and I love that type of playing, honestly. But it's a very much progressive song, a progressive rock song. It really is. If you like Yes and Pink Floyd, you get so much influence from them. If you listen to the track, if you haven't listened to it, you got to check it out. And let us know what you think. It's definitely a little bit of a departure, but Dan, I think, brings it all back to have his blues roots. So
I agree with you. I agree with you on that one song. I think the rest of the album is very much a departure from what it means to be Black Keys, but you can also take other artists.
And not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but the song's also almost 7 minutes long, which I thought was really cool and also adds to the progressive nature. But
that's very true. I totally agree. But that's the thing, you say progressive nature. I feel like Black Keys is becoming more progressive rock than grunge blues rock, which is what they started out. They were definitely just garage blues, we play in your mother's garage and our neighbors hate us kind of blues.
Yeah. Garage rock revival.
Yeah, and now they're kind of progressive rock, and you brought up that they don't feel it anymore. That they because they're not struggling now, ever since
they got some money.
Exactly.
Hey.
And it's not just about money, they got recognition for their music. But it also comes back. It also comes back to. I said before that I feel like they're trying to scrub clean their image from those last few albums. They never play any of their older songs.
No, it's true. They have cut back drastically on how many old songs, almost primarily from Brothers, El Camino, and every once in a while they'll throw a couple old songs in there, but
it never ever
really. And I say old, they're from 2002, so I hate that reference of old music when it's 2 months old. So,
but it never ever goes back to the big come up or thick freakness. You never.
What is thick freakness?
Thick freakness, man. It's thick freakness.
I don't know. If anyone has any ideas of what the hell thick freakness is, please comment us. We'd love to hear it.
But
'Cause I have no clue.
it brings it to this whole idea that I feel like they're trying to scrub clean their past, and they're trying to be more pop or progressive for their future.
They're on the Grammys.
And that's something that I, as a fan of Black Keys from, their beginnings, that's something that I would say I don't like. I would love to see them progress. But I want to see them progress in the way that I know and love them, not into a pop band. And, there's similar issues with other artists, but it goes the opposite way. You look at somebody like Jack White.
Jack White,
Okay? Jack White hasn't done anything new in years. He always plays the same. His style is always the same. And he can't get over his style of songwriting. So all his albums, albeit very, very cool, even though there's only 2 full albums that are just Jack White. The rest are, the White Stripes and things like that. But if you go back to a White Stripes album and listen to it, okay, and then you come up to his new album, Lazaretto, and listen to that, you feel similar vibes in the albums.
Definitely.
And that's because Jack White has a certain style of writing a song.
And the only thing that really has changed, I think, is production quality. I think the production quality of the new material is far better than White Stripes. Even though White Stripes, in my opinion, they still made some of the best songs out of any Jack White material. As far as musically, lyrically, he's always the same, like you said, Mark. But
you know what? I could argue with Lazaretto that a lot of people argue that he's a little bit emotionless, right? Now, I haven't listened to the full album myself, so I can't say, but the songs that I have heard were phenomenal. They were absolutely what I would expect to hear from Jack White. Unfortunately, that's not what I get when I listen to these new Black Keys albums. It is not what I'd expect to hear from the Black Keys. Yes, they're better produced. Yes, they have more people working with them. They can create more sounds. That is great. But when you have a song like Fever, which is more of a pop song than a blues song, in a blues band, if you even look up Black Keys, their genre is still described as blues rock.
Yeah.
So, and they're called a blues duo. A blues duo. But I think that's a little misleading. Their older stuff is definitely blues. Their newer stuff is pop, prog,
much pop driven. Definitely.
Yes, definitely. We get it. We get it. Artists strive to be popular because the music industry is hard. It's very, very hard to make it in the music industry. So once you do, you kind of want to hold on to that, which is why we get Fever, which sounds very similar to Gold on the Ceiling with the synth and, the way that it's driven and the way that it's written, because Gold on the Ceiling was their major hit.
That's true. I was going to say, you brought up a good point the other day. We were talking, and you were talking about Gold on the Ceiling and how it really seemed like that was a precursor to almost the whole Turn Blue album. In the sense that, they broke it down in different ways. And, of course, the only song that really sounds different, at least in my opinion, is A Weight of Love, which I'm still pushing. It really is just a recreation of that aspect of El Camino. And, El Camino, although I love the album from top to bottom, I think the best song is Little Black Submarines. Because it sounds different than the rest of them. And it, other than starting off acoustically, sounded like the old Black Keys, at least in my opinion.
That's very true. It sounded different from the rest of the album, but it sounded very similar to their older stuff. And when I would be more inclined to like their recent albums if they went back and paid homage to their older stuff more often. And if I go to a Black Keys show, honestly, I'm not going to see Fever or Gold on the Ceiling, or even Little Black Submarines. I'm going to see them play Magic Potion, or Rubber Factory, or, Thick Freakness, or The Big Come Up, and they don't do that anymore. They don't play any of those songs. So why should I go see a show of a band that I have liked since they came out if I don't get to see the songs that I like?
To go see the show or not to go see the show? That is the question. Really, to me, the Black Keys are still a phenomenal band. However, their departure from their roots in the blues and adding some more of the synth sort of pop sort of sound in there definitely has taken away from the raw emotion of the songs. And that's something me and Mark both agree on. But I still will go to see Gold on the Ceiling. I'll go see Little Black Submarines. They're great tunes, and at the end of the day, they're still a great band. So
I agree. No, they're a great band. They're not exactly what I expected them to be now. When you hear albums like Magic Potion or something, you expect them to mature in a different way. I feel like they're not maturing. They're actually going backwards. They were so mature with these albums, and now they're going back and they're playing with it. And they're like, let's see what else we can do. Let's see how much fun we can have, which is great. So I don't know. Maybe we should start. Do you
think part of it? I'm sorry. Do you think part of it is the fact that when they first came out, they couldn't afford the equipment that they're getting to playing around with now?
That is true.
That's adding to it. Like, oh, wait a minute, people want to hear this stuff anyway. So
why not?
Let's fool around with it and have a ball.
Why not? That's a very good point. And I would almost say that I would enjoy listening to the Black Keys albums a little bit like backwards now. I'll start at their newest album and work backwards because that's what I personally expected to see from them. I expected to see them mature in a different way. So that's just my opinion. You have your own. We all have different opinions. And we all have different interests. But this has been us at interest level, and we wish that you have a wonderful day.